Thank you, and welcome to our regular council meeting in Beaumont on February 27th, 2024. I will call the meeting to order, and we will begin with the land acknowledgement. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all First Peoples of this land, whether they be First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich vibrant communities across the land. As we gather here in Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis Nation, we acknowledge that we are all treaty people and have ongoing responsibilities to protect and honor the treaty, the inherent rights of the people, and the land. All right, we also have a couple proclamations this evening, so I will read those out. To begin, we have Bullying Awareness Day, which is Pink Shirt Day, hence the pink shirts up here today, which is tomorrow, February 28th, 2024. Whereas Bullying Awareness Day, Pink Shirt Day, highlights Beaumont's commitment to a safe and inclusive community. And whereas acts of bullying, cyberbullying, harassment, intimidation, and violence have a profound effect on an individual's feelings of safety, self-worth, and ability to learn, and are unacceptable in a safe, caring, and orderly society. And whereas communities, workplaces, families, schools, and individuals all have a critical role to play in modeling, teaching, and promoting socially responsible behavior. And whereas Bullying Awareness Day, Pink Shirt Day, is an opportunity to actively promote respectful and kind behavior and to celebrate the actions of individuals, schools, and groups to address bullying. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Catherine McCook, do hereby proclaim February 28th, 2024 as Bullying Awareness Day, Pink Shirt Day. And our next one, we were commenting that it was fitting that I was chairing this meeting for these two proclamations. International Women's Day, which will be March 8th, 2024. Whereas the United Nations began observing International Women's Day in 1975 during International Women's Week. And whereas in Canada, women make up more than half of our population, and there is a necessity to raise awareness about the need for women and young girls of the world to have equitable opportunities in employment and education. And whereas in Beaumont, we recognize the contributions of women to our community as entrepreneurs, decision makers, employees, and citizens. And whereas we call attention to their ability and willingness to contribute to Canada's economic, political, and social communities. And whereas for many among us, our future depends on the success of women in our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Catherine McCook, do hereby proclaim March 8th, 2024 as International Women's Day in the City of Beaumont, dated this 27th day of February, 2024. All right, thank you. We will now move along to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions to the agenda, Madam Clerk? Or changes?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Administration does not have any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Would a committee member like to move the adoption of the agenda? Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would move that the February 27th, 2024 council agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Any discussions to the adoption of the agenda? No? Okay, please vote. And that passes unanimously. We'll move along to open forum. Is there anyone here for open forum, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We do not have any registrations for open forum this evening.
Thank you very much. We'll move along to the consent agenda, the adoption of the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, are you able to put up the consent agenda and read it out, please?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The following consent agenda items: 5.1 regular council meeting minutes, February 13th, 2024, that council adopt the minutes of the February 13th, 2024 regular council meeting as presented. Section 7.1, 347 has been removed from the consent agenda. 7.2, Section 347, request Rule 008134, that the request for waiving property tax penalties in the amount of $826.23 pertaining to Rule number 008134 be denied. 7.3, 2023 Annual Environmental Master Plan Update, that the February 27, 2024 report, 2023 Annual Environmental Master Plan Update be received as information. The request for extension, 7.5, sub-regional transit, that administration continue to negotiate the regional partners regarding cost-sharing opportunities regarding option 3 as set out in the sub-regional transit report, and report back to council by the end of first quarter 2024, and that the end of the first quarter 2024 administration provide a report on options for adding additional stops to the current transit services. Example stops in south of Beaumont. Original due date was March 26, 2024. Proposed revised date is June 30th, 2024. Regional initiatives update 12.1, that the February 27, 2024 regional initiatives update be received as information. 12.2, appointment of public members to council committees, that the appointment and term as set out in the February 27, 2024 report, appointment of public members to council committee be approved, and that the report remain confidential pursuant to Section 17 and 29 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you very much. A little bit of a mouthful. I see there are discussions. So Councillor Monkoff-Swain.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to remove item 7.5 from the consent agenda, request for extension, sub-regional transit.
Thank you. And Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to remove an item from the consent agenda, 7.3, the Annual Environmental Master Plan Update.
Thank you. And Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to clarify as to why 7.1 has been removed from the consent agenda.
I will defer to Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Councillor Penrod. There is the applicant is here that would wish to speak to it.
Okay, so I would then like to pull 7.2 from the consent agenda as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we need to read them back out or are we okay? We're okay? Okay. Would anyone like to move the consent agenda? Adoption of the consent agenda. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. 5.1, the regular council meeting minutes, February 13, 2024. 7.1 is no longer there. 12.1, the regional initiatives update, and 12.2, the appointment of public members to council committees.
Thank you. And please vote. That passes unanimously. All right, along 6.1 was a registered presentation from the Beaumont Society for the Arts. Unfortunately, they were not able to make it this evening last minute. So our administration will work with them to reschedule. So we will move along to our business items. 7.1, section 347 request. I believe Madam Clerk, will you speak to that or will it be?
It'll be finance that's speaking to this item.
Perfect. Thank you. There you are.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. My name is Jessie McDonald, and I'm the Accounting and Financial Reporting Manager for the city. Before Council is a report with a request to waive property tax penalties under Section 347(1) of the Municipal Government Act. The report outlines the request as well as administration and Council's role in addressing these requests. Cancellation, refund, reduction, or deferral of any or all property tax impacts all property owners, as these amounts must be made up by other property owners. So it is imperative that council exercises the authority in a manner that is fair and equitable to all property owners. In order to maintain equity amongst all property owners, administration would recommend that council grant a section 347 request if there was an error in fact, either in the assessment, calculation of taxes, or assessment of penalties. However, under this request, this was not the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I'll ask that you put the recommended motion up. Thank you. Would the applicant wish to speak to council since you're here? Yes, okay. Madam Clerk, would you like me to move the motion or have the applicant speak?
If the applicant would like to speak first.
Okay, thank you. We will do that. Come on up.
Sorry.
Hello.
Deputy Mayor, Councilman, women, thank you for having me today. I'm just looking for a little compassion. Lost my husband 7 months ago today, and just a little bit drowning. So just looking for a life preserver, if I may, from this community that we chose to live in many years ago, and we're still here with my husband gone. I'm not even really sure what else to say. I'm just like looking for a little compassion.
Okay, thank you so much.
And
Thank
I
you.
do know that you guys offer, like, I have it on my phone here, if I could just bring it up.
Okay.
That the municipality has provisions under its property tax relief policy, section 4.43, to waive penalties and interest on property tax arrears in such circumstances. I'm just not sure what other circumstances would make this happen. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
First, I just want to say our condolences for, I think I speak for all of council here. And thank you for coming here this evening. I know that must have been difficult, so appreciate you. We will move forward with the motion. Is there a councillor that would like to move the motion on the floor or speak up? Councillor Penrod?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move that the request to waive property tax penalties in the amount of $2,186.95 pertaining to roll number 003755 be denied.
Thank you, councillor. Do you wish to speak or?
Yes, I would like to speak. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for beginning with condolences for Ms. Turner. And thank you for coming in tonight. Sounds like it's been a terrible year for you. I'm glad that we have opened these up. I don't like to see residents given the opportunity to make an appeal to the city and then have it put off onto a consent agenda item. I feel like if we have an opportunity for people to appeal and they make an appeal in good order, your appeal is in good order, you ought to at least feel like you've had a fair hearing. And so I think you're correct. We do have the ability, based on our judgment of what is fair and equitable for the entire community. I'll just say I would be moved to vote in favor of your appeal if I'm only thinking of you and your circumstances. When we zoom out and think of then I have to entertain what happens if we say yes to every appeal that comes in. Obviously, not all grounds are the same, but even procedurally, to entertain more and more appeals could be problematic. I do have a question for administration, if I might. Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Can you give us some direction and some information on what the costs are, if any, that are incurred by the city of Beaumont when property owners fail to pay their taxes on time?
Through the deputy mayor to Councillor Penrod, the cost to the city of Beaumont would just be the administrative work that's involved with that. So the additional follow-up with the residents, not actually a direct financial cost.
Okay, so in your judgment, if we were to approve this request, there would be minimal impact on the tax levy for other residents?
Through the deputy mayor to Councillor Penrod, while administration extends our sincerest condolences to this resident, there have been requests of this nature in the past, and the cost of the other residents would have to be made up. So the tax levy would have to increase if we do not collect.
On this particular, or if we were to grant all appeals of a similar nature? I just want to make sure that I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, on this particular, but on all.
Mr. DeBlanco may be able to offer some additional insight here.
Sure, thank you. Just to add some additional context on everything, within the policy, obviously there are scenarios where administration recommend that the request be approved, and that's almost always if there was an error in calculating the taxes. We don't take a stance on compassionate grounds for reasons that every circumstance is different, so that then becomes council's purview to exercise that option. In terms of making up property taxes, that's really on the tax amount rather than the penalty amount. The penalty amount is more about equity than anything. When we talk about spreading, other property owners making up for a request to to waive property taxes, that's when it gets made up. On the penalty amount, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. It's more about equity and exercising judgment.
Thank you for the clarity. I don't need to speak further. I will be voting against this motion, even though I made it. I know that's a little strange. I pushed my button earlier than I intended. But I am voting to approve your request for waival of the penalties on your taxes on compassionate grounds.
Okay, we have a couple more councillors who would like to speak here, and then we will deal with this one and then see if there are subsequent motions. Councillor Barnhart, then Councillor Ntallenbos.
Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the administration. Just wondering if we have any practice when we encounter someone who has hit upon dire straits and whatever might be the circumstance, whether it's job loss or loss of a loved one, et cetera. Do we refer them anywhere? Do we have anything within the city that is a practice by which we can help get them the help that they might need, short-term help?
Through the deputy mayor to Councillor Barnhart. Currently, we do not refer them anywhere, but I do believe we could add that into our practice.
I think that's what I'm seeing, and I'll be voting in favor of the motion, not because I lack compassion, because I think this is a very serious issue that people do run upon, and I've seen many of them. But to be fair, this isn't the way in which we've dealt with it, and I'm concerned about precedent setting and where we would go if we continue down this with this practice. But I do think we need to have a means for people to get the help that they need, short-term and perhaps long-term. And I know other municipalities do that. So I do have an inquiry later on in the meeting, Madam Chair, but at this point, I will be voting in favor of this motion.
Thank you, and Councillor Ntallenbos.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. First of all, sincerest condolences. These times are tough, and many of us have been through similar circumstances or the loss of a loved one, and it greatly impacts your ability to deal with what's on your plate at that given time. I am one that appreciates the realism that comes with life, and sometimes you're thrown curveballs that you have zero control over. And the request here, in my opinion, is more than reasonable. We're not asking for a reduction in property tax. We're not asking to eliminate the property tax. We're simply asking that the penalty, which my understanding through Mr. DeBlanco is very minimal impact on the whole of the community financially, be waived. So as such, because there's minimal impact to our community, because of the circumstances, and similar to the other proposals that have come past council and I have voted in favor to support, I will be supporting the relief that is being requested. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCobb-Swain.
Thank you. Condolences again. I'll pull us out a little bit, and while I hear the compassionate grounds, the concern that I have with this is not the situation itself. It's the precedent. If something as tragic as this is somewhere where council wants to be, then I think we should put that into policy and not deal with it with a one-off. There, you know, you've had the bravery to come and speak to us about your circumstance, and I applaud you for that. There are many other people who haven't and who have gone through similar things, but haven't come in front of council. And so, what I think my role as a councillor here is to pull out and look at the community and trying to set a policy that's fair and not kind of reacting to one-offs. So while it's a very tragic one-off, if we do this, my concern is what else does come in front of us, right? And you know, I would much rather take a step back and discuss this as an issue, as a policy issue for our tax process. Like in this circumstance, you know, we should, if there is a will of council to make it uniform, that, you know, if someone receives or loss within X amount of time, then they forego that, right? Like I personally wouldn't vote for that, but I think that's a fair way to deal with these challenging matters, as opposed to kind of one-off coming in front of us. I don't think that's good governance. So I'll be voting in favor of the motion here, and would recommend if other councillors, you know, think that there is merit, that we could look at that from a broader policy discussion, and put something in place so that administration has the goalposts or the bookends to be able to make these decisions. You know, we have asked administration, and we direct them to look at these things. They're giving a recommendation here that we should deny this application based on everything that was said. So I agree with that, and I'll be voting in favor of this motion. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We have Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, then round two for Councillor Penrod.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Again, zooming out and looking at it with a policy lens is where my head is at as well. If there's effort to be made, I think that's probably where it should be made. One of the reasons that I got off the couch and decided to put my name forward and try to get elected was inconsistent decision making, and inconsistent decision making is literally the motivation that put me in this chair. There were challenges around the number of parking stalls. Humor me, I'll get there. This is going to come around. There were issues around the number of parking stalls being granted to like land use situations, and you know, folks would come and plead their case, and sometimes it would be cash in lieu, and sometimes it would be parking stalls. Was inconsistent. There was inconsistent decision making around community grants and how they were applied, and it seemed to be a first with the presentation was going to get, you know, the money around those things, and how that inconsistency was dealt with was in improvements to the process. For myself, zooming back in, you know, since I've been elected, there's been situations of all kinds in front of myself where taxes haven't been paid, taxes have been in arrears, and numerous situations that have occurred. And, I have compassion for all of the situations that have come in front of me, but, I've said previously, and I'll be consistent in my decision-making that, that I won't support the request for the penalty to be withdrawn. So I will be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McCook. I'll be very brief. So just mentioning the policy, I think that's something we could have some good and fruitful discussion around. I don't disagree with my colleagues that a better, more consistent, and more guaranteed to be equitable way to do this would be to have a cleaner policy in play. But the policy in front of us today is that any resident can make application and have a fair hearing before council. And I don't think that Ms. Turner ought to be punished in her request today for simply making a request under the policy as it exists. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Natellenbos.
Thank you. I will also keep it short and sweet. I do want to echo what Councillor Van Nieuwerk said, consistency. I'm a strong believer in it. But as Councillor Penrod had mentioned, the policy that exists gives us the opportunity to run through this scenario and evaluate the circumstances. I'm also quite familiar with policies throughout organizations, throughout municipalities, and you will never capture absolutely every scenario. And this is why we run through process like this. So just to further support what Councillor Van Nieuwerk said, yes, consistency is needed, policy is needed, but you'll never capture every scenario. I continue to stand where I did before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Obviously difficult. Thank you for raising the point, and thank you again for coming in. I think while I also empathize with the challenges all our constituents face, I believe it's crucial for us to consider the long-term implications, and perhaps we need to explore alternative solutions to address the root causes of financial difficulties faced by our residents. It's essential that we make decisions that are both compassionate but also sustainable in the long run that don't impact the sustainability of our city. For that, I will be voting in favor of this motion. So I will put it to a vote if there are no other comments or concerns. And the vote passes 4-2. Thank you. And we will move on to the next item of the agenda. Which is 7.2, section 347. I will, I'm sorry, Jessica, correct? Okay, Jesse, okay. Jesse, I will let you speak to that one as well.
Thank you. So again, good evening to the Deputy Mayor and Council. My name is Jessie McDonald, and I'm the Accounting and Financial Reporting Manager for the city. Before council is a report with a request to waive property tax penalties under section 347(1) of the Municipal Government Act. The report outlines the request as well as administration and council's role in addressing these requests. Cancellation, refund, reduction, or deferral of any or all property tax impacts all property owners, as these amounts must be made up. So it is imperative that council exercises the authority in a manner that is fair and equitable to all property owners. In order to maintain equity amongst all property owners, administration would recommend that council grant a section 347 request if there was an error in fact, either in the assessment, calculation of taxes, or assessment of penalties. However, this was not the case in this request. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, we can put the motion up. And And is there anyone wanting to move the motion? Councillor Penrod, I know you rang in, but do you want to move this motion as well? Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move that the request for waiving property tax penalties in the amount of $826.23 pertaining to roll number 008134 be denied.
Thank you. Do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. So I'll be brief. I move to pull this off of the consent agenda. I think I've been clear as to why to do that. I think folks that are following the process that exists in good faith ought to feel like they've had a fair hearing. And if I put myself in this resident's shoes or any resident's shoes and I'd done that and it just kind of passed through on the consent agenda with no comment, I'm not sure I'd feel I had a fair hearing. That being said, I will be voting in support of this motion. Unfortunately, this resident has not provided me with enough information to make a decision in support of their request. I think it needs to be a high bar from what other councillors have said this evening to go against the advice of administration on these items. And so unfortunately, this resident has not provided me with enough information to be able to meet that threshold this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Natellenboss.
Thank you. I find myself in a similar scenario. I unfortunately don't have the opportunity to discuss this with the individual making this request. And I would have a few questions such as potentially could have we started with a deferral or a request for deferral as opposed to getting to this point. I do appreciate that everyone again has circumstances that prevent them or inhibit them from being able to make certain payments, but again, we have to practice our due diligence to make sure that we don't run into a scenario like this in terms of asking prior to. I would have supported a request for a deferral, but at this point, I just, again, don't have enough information and unfortunately can't ask the questions. So I will have to support this, this proposal as well.
Thank you, Councillor. I see no other councillors who wish to speak. No other councillors wish to speak. We will move this into a vote. And that passes 6-0. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 7.3, the 2023 Alberta Environmental Master Plan update. Who will be speaking to this? Come on up. Your microphone is on.
Hi, good evening. Council, thank you for having me. My name is Lenore Turner and I'm the environmental lead with the city. So I'll just briefly summarize this report, which is the 2023 Annual Environmental Master Plan Update. So this master plan was approved by council in 2021, and it's the strategic plan that guides Beaumont's progress towards its environmental goals. So within the report, it indicates that we will give a summary each year of the previous year's progress. So the progress on the environmental master plan is summarized in the attachment. And I'll just briefly mention some of the key items that we achieved this year. So we completed the urban agricultural plan in Q4 2023. We submitted the initial proposal to Federation of Canadian Municipalities for the Clean Energy Improvement Program, and that was approved. That was the initial application, now working on the final application. We registered in the Extended Producer Responsibility Program for single-use products, packaging, and printed paper and hazardous materials. There was development and delivery of a campaign to promote proper waste sorting and waste reduction, development and delivery of a school education engagement program, ongoing data collection and compilation for the environmental and monitoring framework, and completed energy efficient light retrofits for the main pump house building and RCMP building. and engaged and collaborated with various regional groups on environmental initiatives. So we should note that the goals and actions listed in the EMP were based on hiring a full-time environmental position to support the environmental lead. However, since this position was not approved to hire, this does affect the timelines for EMP goals, and as such, some of those are impacted. So goals and actions are prioritized based on our current resourcing, and some programs and initiatives were impacted. An outline of all things achieved are in the attachment here for you to review as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It appears we've made some progress on things, but
Yep.
still have quite a bit to do.
Mhm.
Madam Clerk, I believe we have a recommendation on the floor. If you could put that up. To receive as information, then we'll proceed. Would anyone like to move this motion? Councillor Barnhart, would you like to move it?
Sure would. Thank you, Chair. I move that the February 27th, 2024 report, 2023 annual environmental master plan update be received as information.
Thank you. And then would you wish to
I do.
speak?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the update. When it came about and I read it, sorry, losing my voice today, and realized that things have not gone as fast as we would hope them to go. It just made me a little worried because you can't pick up a paper or listen to a newspaper or read anything on the internet without seeing how much we're concerned about what's happening in the environment. So it just made me pause and think this is maybe something we need to reprioritize or look at again. I guess the thought about, well, if we set these priorities for having extra staff or having another staff person, and now we don't have that staff person, would we come up with different priorities? And is that something that we need to take time and think about? So again, lots going through my head. I'm just wondering if you have anything you might want to add to where do we go from here? This is an important issue. Should we be rethinking this? What's the next steps?
Yeah, I mean, I think environmental initiatives are very important for a number of reasons to be sustainable, also to create better conditions for the residents that feel that they can support the community in a positive way environmentally. So I think it's extremely important, and so do many people, obviously. As you mentioned, it's in the news. I would love to have another environmental staff member to help with all these initiatives. But as it is, you know, we are constrained for budget, and I believe each year it was put forward, but the position was unapproved. So I guess that's a decision that was made by administration and council in terms of not funding that position. So I would love to have more support in this area, and we would be able to achieve obviously a lot more if there was another position. And I do think it is important for so many reasons. But I guess that was
maybe
the decision.
go a
that was
little
made.
bit further with my question.
Yeah.
It seems that we had a plan based on a certain level of resources. And
Yes.
now that resources didn't
Yes.
come.
Yeah.
And so now we have what we have. And
Right.
we can look at it
Yeah.
as the glass is half empty or the glass is half full.
Yeah.
And there's different ways of looking at that.
Mhm.
And I just wonder if there is an opportunity in the near future for us to have another look at that strategic plan and see perhaps we need to reprioritize, or is that something that the administration is looking into and can
Yeah.
come back with an update? I'm not sure where to go with this, but to say
Yeah.
we can't do, and I know strategic
Mhm.
master plans are not meant to be actually done in 1 year, that they're long-term.
Mhm.
But I do have some concerns about some of the things that are affecting the
Mhm.
whole world, but in particular, what's our most important issues that we should be addressing? And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if this is the way to get at that.
Right. So on an ongoing basis, we do reprioritize items, and the ones that are most important do get done in general. So for example, ones that are related to compliance, for example, we must do for environmental regulations. Of course, those get most prioritized. Things that are related to the council strategic plan, for example, the Clean Energy Improvement Program, we've been putting resources into focusing on that because that is in the council strategic plan. So There's constant reprioritization based on resources and what is most important. So I think that is being done. The next environmental plan is supposed to come out, I believe, in 2026, because this one goes 2021 to 2026. So perhaps in the next one, it should be, you know, this is what we can achieve with current staff levels. This is what we can achieve with more. I don't know if it would be best to do a whole nother master plan at this point.
No, and
Partially-
I'm
partially
not suggesting
right.
that, but I guess I am looking at this from somewhat of an optimistic point of view. You've accomplished a lot. If you're an office of one, you've done a
Yeah.
fantastic job here in
Yeah.
terms of what you have accomplished. And
Mhm.
not having the extra resources, that's something we have to deal with.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think there's ways in which all of us should be paying attention to this within our realm of influence, instead of just putting it all on your shoulders and say, you have to do
Right.
this whole plan by yourself.
Right.
Which I
Yeah.
know that's not the case. Anyway, I don't want to go ranting here. I just wanted to let you know that I do think this is an extremely important issue, and I appreciate all that you have done with the limited resources that we have, and hope that we can do more. Thank you.
No. Okay. Thank you. Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to echo my colleague, Councillor Barnhart's comments, and thank you, Ms. Turner, for your work. I'm relatively new and still making my rounds to some of our committees, but I know at a recent Leducan District Regional Waste Management Commission meeting that I was at just before Christmas, I heard people speaking very favorably of your work, and so not just within the city, but
Mhm.
within our intermunicipal partnerships. I think you're seen as a great resource and asset to Beaumont and
Mhm.
the region, so thank you for that work. I do have a couple questions for you. First, a point of clarification. You mentioned that this position that we're speaking about that has remained unfunded was put forward for the budget. Can I clarify, was that budget 2023?
I don't know actually if any of you has a clarification. It was put forward at one point, but I don't know at what point it was unfunded.
Mike?
What I was going to add, and Lenore is correct, it's actually entered the budget process in multiple years, but has not been recommended as funded.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful clarification. I don't recall it being put forward as even as an unfunded piece for our consideration for 2024. So I just wanted to clarify that. I do see that in the master plan, the recommendation is that that position ought to have been hired for Q1 of 2023. So obviously we can't change the past.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, however, if this council prioritized to fund the position, is there a particular goal or outcome that funding the position, having it hired already
Mhm.
for Q1, which
Mhm.
means we would have to hire it in Q4 of the current year?
Mhm.
Is there an opportunity that would unlock having that person in place for Q1 of 2025?
I mean, yeah, the sooner we could hire an additional person, the more we could do. We do have the plan to have the Clean Energy Improvement Program, and that will take more resourcing. You know, other municipalities have done it with many staff. You know, finance will also be a help for that program, but doing that program will take away from other environmental things currently done and planned. So we hope to launch that in 2025. So having an additional person before that would help for that program, as well as not bumping every single other environmental item.
Yeah, so if I could just frame the question in a slightly different way, would there be opportunities that are time sensitive that we would miss if that person wasn't up and running for Q1 of 2025, that we'd maybe miss for a whole nother year? I'm trying to wrap my mind around if this
Right.
is a priority.
Yeah.
Do we need to look at creating an additional FTE for 2025, which is next budget year? Or do we need to would I need to look at trying to find money in this current year
Mhm.
to hire that position in the current year
Right.
to bring it
right.
on stream? Does that make sense?
Yep, for sure. I mean, a whole number of initiatives will be delayed the longer we wait. And I do think the Clean Energy Improvement Program, the launch of it will be delayed as well if another person is not hired. Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
it would essentially delay.
Thank you. That's helpful. And the Clean
Thanks.
Energy Improvement Program, as kind of my last remark, this is a program that I have residents asking me about
Mhm.
regularly.
Mhm.
Folks are excited for this. They wish it was on board sooner. So
Yep.
there's maybe an opportunity there to tell that story about this. This is one reason why this position may be important to fund sooner than later.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor. And I think if I can just offer some insight with SEEP as well, part of it was in order for us to move forward on it, we had to change some of our financial systems to be able to kind of speak together in order for SEEP to work. And that was just went through. So they're working on that as well, in addition to what Ms. Turner is speaking about here. Mr. Loki, would you like to offer some comments?
Yes, thank you. To the Deputy Mayor, basically, I just wanted to state that as part of the upcoming 2025 budget, we'll reassess and figure out whether or not administration will recommend this position either as funded or unfunded. That will be something we do. Obviously, this was something identified in the master plan, so we will take that approach again this upcoming budget cycle. Additionally, what we were trying to do in the report was to make sure that the expectations were understood as to the resourcing constraints and make sure that we're adjusting those expectations for deliverables, and that's kind of how we've been trying to address what the expectations were in the master plan versus what we're able to do with our current resourcing. So I just wanted to that was the intention behind the last portion of this report, identifying certain items that might be reforecasted or delayed based on resourcing constraints. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? We consistently talk about our growth and the challenges that we see with it often, and this highlights one of them. Our current staff is quite busy, and more resources are needed to deliver on some of these master plans. So those will be things that we will look at budget time. But thank you very much for the report.
Yep.
And if there's no other questions, we will vote.
Thank you.
Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much for the update. All right, moving along to 7.4, update on the traffic safety program. We'll be speaking to this one. Hello. Come on up, and your mic is on. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. I'm Parth Mehta. I'm the Development and Engineering Coordinator with the city. I'm here to present the report giving an update on city's traffic safety program. This report relates to two council motions from November 2023. First motion, that by the end of first quarter of 2024, administration provide a report on traffic calming measures from 2023, and no further curb extensions will be deployed until the report is considered. The second motion, that the proposed 2024 capital budget be amended by adding funding in the amount of $200,000 for the traffic safety program for purpose of crosswalk enhancement. Also to note that the curb extension pilot program is a result of previous council motions from year 2022, also referenced in this report. So today I'll discuss the 2023 traffic safety program results and give you some insights, highlights on the work scope of 2024. Last year program included installation of pedestrian activated signal on 50th Street near the Home Hardware location, and implementation of traffic calming measures as a pilot program at two intersections along 56A Street, one at the north approach intersecting Rue Monteley, and south approach intersecting 55 Avenue. Before I get into the results, I'll discuss some background information. Administration consulted a transportation expert to perform safety studies at these intersections in 2022, and we presented results to council and recommendation at the same time. Previous studies identified several concerns at these locations. First, including vehicle encroaching on sidewalks, vehicle crossing into the opposing lane when turning left, poor visibility of existing marked crosswalks. So to address these concerns, temporary curb extensions were installed as part of a pilot program, along with repainting crosswalk and stop lines, trimming landscape features, as well as adding additional signage to improve visibility for drivers and pedestrians. After applying these modifications, administration initiated a follow-up assessment in the fall of 2023 to evaluate results of implemented traffic measures, including video monitoring, and it was performed by the same transportation consultant at the location previously studied in June 2022. The assessment displayed positive results, and I'll share major improvements observed at both intersections. First, pedestrian visibility was increased due to the curb extension placement, as it reduces the crossing distance for pedestrians. Second, curb extensions prevented vehicles from mounting onto sidewalk and significantly reducing the number of vehicles crossing onto opposing lane while turning left. Finally, vehicles reduced their speed while approaching these intersections due to narrow widths at the opening. I want to highlight that follow-up study results showed significant improvements in terms of traffic and pedestrian safety. The curb extensions encourage drivers to lower their speed while approaching intersection and make conscious decisions when turning left. Based on city staff observation, curb extensions provided a protective barrier for pedestrians, making visible space for them to wait before they approach the crossing distance at the road. I would also like to note that installation of pedestrian activated signal on 50th Street improved pedestrian safety. So with the administration support, the transportation consultant recommends continuing the pilot program at the same locations with minor adjustment to improve the pedestrian safety and continue to keep these intersections safe. The minor modifications include adding a temporary low-profile rubber median in the center at both intersections and adjusting the temporary curb placement to maintain the driving width for all type of vehicles. I've included 3 figures in the report for your review, showing the installation plans at both intersections and an example picture of a temporary median. In 2022, council input was to add a center median at these intersections, and the low-profile rubber median shadows a similar ideology. This median will function as a hard concrete surface median without compromising the travel lane width for larger vehicle or any vehicle, period. Now I'll go over the main highlights of 2024 traffic safety program work scope. Administration will upgrade 10 pedestrian crosswalk locations along the neighborhood roads across the city and install RRFP treatments, which is basically rapid flashing lights setup. The existing crosswalk at 50th Street and 32nd Avenue will be upgraded and replaced with an overhead pedestrian activated signal. Continuation of traffic calming pilot program at both intersections along 56A Street from June to October 2024, as this will be the peak time for pedestrian traffic. Administration will then re-evaluate the pilot program before the end of current year to determine future direction, including whether the program should be eliminated, continued annually, or should we move towards installation of permanent concrete curb extensions. The evaluation process will include collecting and analyzing video footage and also completing a speed study before the end of this year, likely in fall 2024. In terms of communication, administration will post notifications on city's website and social media platform, notifying about the upcoming traffic measures. We will also post a short Q&A document for public on city's website to answer commonly asked questions and help educate residents on the forthcoming traffic measures. With that being said, I'll end my presentation and I'll open the floor for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will We have a couple motions related to this report, Madam Clerk. So I believe we will put the first one up regarding 56A.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I just call for a quick recess? I just need to confirm something.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
5 minutes, 5-minute recess. Thank you. We have returned from our break, and I will open it up for discussion at this point and any questions that any counselors may have. And I personally have a few, but I will see if they're asked. Councillor Natalie-Boss.
Perfect. Thanks so much for the report. Obviously, a lot of good information there. A lot to absorb, 100%. I'll start with my first question and then I'll get into more details. But based on some of the measures that have been implemented, how much have we engaged the general public to see their thoughts on it after the fact, after it's been implemented?
Okay, so through Deputy Mayor to Councillor. So last year, we did public engagement before we started. That was before we deployed these curb extensions. We notified people what to look out for. We took feedback from, rather than public as whole, more of a complaint or comments through our city works on how these programs, how these curb extensions are observed in the city. Later, when we did the home hardware improvements at 50th Street, we also did public engagement by doing communication through our website and social media platforms, also advising what the changes are coming, as well as what the benefits are of these new upgrades. But that was the communication last year. However, if we go forward with these upgrades this year, we'll be proactive with more communication for the public.
Okay, perfect. So I do appreciate the front end communication, but now that we've completed this initial pilot project, and I'm more so speaking about the curb extensions, what have we done to engage the public and ask them their thoughts specifically on this project?
So we haven't done this yet. However, we have an upcoming survey tool coming up for determining the pedestrian locations. We are adding an option for public to seek their thoughts of how this program went last year. So there will be an option added in the survey tool asking residents in the city that what are your feedbacks from these implications that were done last year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I just in terms of this report, we look at November 29th, 2023. It mentions that by the end of the quarter, administration provide the report on traffic calming extensions, and then no further curb extensions be deployed until after this report is considered. So obviously we get this report now, but this report states that we're going to be doing curb extensions. So is there going to be an opportunity to vote down this concept? I guess would be my question, because we only got the report and yeah, it's basically saying this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, through Deputy Mayor to Councillor, these were the plans incorporated last year. However, we are presenting today, and if Council decides to go a different direction, we are open to take that suggestion as well.
Okay, perfect. The other concern I have with this report, and probably not so much on what's been provided to us, but maybe by the third party, is that we've introduced 5 variables here. We're looking at repainting crosswalks, adding stop lines and repainting them, landscape trimming, and additional signage. However, when we look at the follow-up study, it says that primarily just because of this curb extension, we've reduced this, this, and this, and there's no mention of the other criteria or the variables that have been adjusted. So that's a bit concerning in terms that it's very subjective. There's probably a lot of these other criteria that affected the speeds and reduced speeds, not just the curb extensions. Reason I've got a strong voice on this is because I've had a lot of complaints from residents with frustration with these curb extensions. And majority, if not everyone I spoke to, wants this to end as soon as it can. So I'm just speaking on behalf of the residents, and a couple of things that I think are worth noting is introducing 5 manipulated variables and then just assuming it's one that caused all the change would be poor practice, in my opinion, in terms, again, not yourself, but in terms of assuming that this one variable made all this change. But that's all I have.
Thank you, Counselor. I think the issue at 56A is something we heard about a lot from various residents that live around the area. There was a lot of safety concerns that were put forward. And we regularly engage the residents around there. From that, we engage professionals to tell us, what is the best course of action here? What is the best way to make it safe, make the intersection safer? And this was the solution that came up. It's not necessarily an ideal solution for everyone, but it is something that was put forward based on the professionals and the experts that look at traffic and safety all the time. And I think that's always been our main goal, is to increase safety of our residents and safety of that particular intersection. And we have to take into account vehicles and pedestrians alike. And so that is why we have what we have in front of us at this time. While I know it's not always it isn't necessarily the popular decision at this time, I think we definitely need to take everything into consideration, especially what the professionals have put in front of us. But we'll welcome additional discussion as we move forward. Councillor Monkoff-Swain, then Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you. Clearly, we talk to different people. I heard nothing but great feedback, and yeah, I mean, to Councillor McCook's point, this is, people have asked us to look at this for a long, long time. So I didn't think we were going there tonight, but first, let me just say, great report. Really, really informative. I really like the low profile medium that the professionals are recommending. That looks good. I have no background in any of this. All I know is that it's been an issue. And so clearly here's a chance to improve it. The question that came up last time is around the temporary or not, right? And so maybe just speak to a bit about why we don't have these full-time, snow removal, all that sort of stuff. So just provide some background around, this is an issue. It's an issue 365 days a year, not just when we put the temporary ones out. So just some background around why we only do these temporarily.
Yep. So through Deputy Mayor to Councillor, we came up with these pilot program because considering that it might be a challenge this is a new product for the city, and it might be a challenge for the residents as well as from the administrative side. We wanted this program to be a pilot, also going back to just to learn how this is working. And as it was a recommendation from the transportation expert, the initial recommendation was to do this permanently. Administration came up with a pilot program to see how things work in the city, as well as in terms of snow removal. I think it would require additional training for operational staff, because maybe there is not enough room for snow storage when we have to plow the roads. So pilot program allowed us to experiment this project and see how it operates through the summer, and then we can explore options to expand that into winter season as well.
Okay, and I see here you're talking about getting additional footage to try to understand driver patterns and all that sort of stuff to help us kind of take a longer term view of that. I think that makes all the sense in the world. Yeah, going back to my original point around the feedback and it's subjective, right? And so I listen to it, but don't rely on it. Do we know if there was anyone who submitted anything into our customer service portal around concerns around this?
Through Deputy Chair to Councillor, we had 2 complaints through City Works, and those were both from the same bus driver in that area. So we took the feedback from the driver and we started off putting these extensions conservatively. So we had it all very close to the intersection. We monitored it for a couple weeks and then we bumped it out to the design that was recommended by the expert.
Yep.
After getting that feedback, we did go back to the conservative approach. So the concern was the driver was unable to make the turn, and the upcoming traffic was very surprised with that turn. So we did evaluate that situation, and then we readjusted those curbs. And this year, we do have a video footage from our collection. So now we exactly see what the challenge would be and how we can modify this intersection to make sure that the travel widths are maintained for all type of vehicles.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of you guys putting out something that we think is in the best interest, hearing feedback, adapting it based on that, and carrying on. So, yeah, great work on this. Curious on what others say, but no, I'm really excited about this, and particularly around the RRFBs, these rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So I'm eagerly waiting about where these 10 locations are. I know you're going to determine them through prioritization, but I know the public is very interested in that as well. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Newkirk. Just before we go to Councillor Van Newkirk, actually, since Councillor McGough-Swain touched on the bus, there was some concerns brought forward from cyclists as well, that the curb extensions potentially kind of push them out into traffic. Would these new curbs kind of be any different, or can you speak to that?
Yeah, through the chair to Deputy Mayor. The new layout for these curb extensions would be more focused at the openings of 56A Street. So initially we had also squeezed the 56A Street extending south and north. The new placement will be more focused towards the abutting roads, so 55 Avenue and Rue Monteley. So that would likely eliminate the obstruction, maybe how cyclists maybe saw as an obstruction. So it will be repositioned in a manner that it is not impacting pedestrian crossing, it is not impacting cyclists, and the vehicles are easily, they can easily maneuver throughout that curbs.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that clarification. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. Clearly, a lot of work has went into 56A over the years, but I'll first start with some comments on the locations of the new flashing crosswalk. So I believe what I heard you say was that there's going to be some feedback sought from the residents as to where you think they should go. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor, that is right. We are developing this survey tool, which will be posted late spring, which will allow residents to pinpoint locations on the whole city map. And based on the collection data, we will prioritize those locations with maximum amount of votes or determine what requires priority.
Yeah, no, kudos for doing that. I think the community 100% wants to have some input on that, and kudos to all of us at budget for voting the dollars in. And I think Sam, thank you for putting that forward and pushing that along over the years. So it's taken a few budgets to get us to the point where there's dollars there, there's a survey to provide input for residents, and then we'll be able to follow through on that. So I'm pretty excited about that. 56A Street, I'm gonna switch my focus here, curbs / 56A Street. The street has been a challenge since it was made a thoroughfare. There's been all kinds of feedback from residents on 56A Street, positive and negative over the years. There's been a speed reduction down to 30. There's been the traffic calming measure of the crosswalk with the bulbs. That comes, there's already a swale in there that you can't drive any faster. Otherwise you'll damage your vehicle or launch it, basically. And that road gets used as a cut across or a cut through for the community and high traffic volumes, right? So the curbs and the deployment of curbs here is literally top 3 of issues that I've heard feedback from residents on. mostly negative. I've canvassed people on 56A Street that I know, and, you know, maybe a neighbor or two or whatever, and support for it's about 50-50. It's about split. I've heard the concerns from cyclists, as Councillor McCook had stated, right? But, you know, you alluded to it earlier around, you know, modifying the curbs based on feedback. So the feedback that I heard on that is the curbs showed up one day. I figured out where they were. I saw the curbs, but I didn't see the crosswalk because I was focused on the curbs. You know, the curbs are a hazard on the road I'm trying to avoid, and I forget about the crosswalk. I'm like, okay, well, it's a, you know, well-marked crosswalk, and you know, I guess get used to it, right? You know, there was also a time when all of a sudden a stop sign got plopped there for a bit, right? So when it comes to certainty about what's going there, you're right. Bus driver, you know, gave feedback and things were modified. What I would challenge is there is feedback from bus drivers, plural, in the community, but they aren't stepping forward to give that feedback for whatever reason. I've talked to at least 3, and they were a challenge for bus drivers. So kudos for, you know, moving the one so that the turn could be made better. But the physical size of vehicles, when we're restricting the width of the road in the way that we are, is a challenge. I've heard from a family who doesn't have their kids take that crosswalk at Rue Montelay anymore because they feel that everyone is focused on the curb extensions as they come. First, it's tight road, and, you know, there's cars along the way. Then they're looking at the curbs, not paying attention to the crosswalk, and, you know, they're having to really coach their kids on the use of the crosswalk, right? So there's all this feedback in situations that I wish more of it got into the portal. You know, today I recommended 3 people with snow concerns, like, get them into the portal, right? Like this is where this feedback needs to go. And time and time again, that's what I ask. So I am disappointed that there's only a couple in the portal, because that's literally where the focus of this needs to be, right? So thank you for acknowledging the conversation in 2022 on the south end of 56A, where, you know, where a median in the middle of the road was suggested. You know, that was myself and Councillor Tessier that were talking about that at that time. And to see that we're here now is a better suggestion, I think, and they're where, you know, where we should be. But my bigger picture comment here is that, I don't know good words to say this, but here we are trying something else again, right? 56A has been a challenge for a very long time. We do the temporary curbs, we do the speeds, we do the traffic calming, we have the swale, people are cutting across, and here we are again trying something on 56A. You know, I look forward to what a permanent solution is going to look like. Safety is a #1 concern in the community. You know, folks coming on the south end of 56A, looping around, speed corner and to go north, see it all the time, right? That, you know, like, which is why I wanted to suggest that median in the first place. But for me right now, I would rather invest our time and energy in what the permanent solutions are going to be, fund that, and move forward. So right now, for me, I'm done with the curbs. I'm done with the temporary stuff. That's not where I think this should be. I think we should focus with the traffic experts on what the plan is going to be. You know, we've collected feedback around safety for years. We know that 56A has safety issues. We know there are safety concerns from the residents. We know that the south end provides safety issues. There's even some bushes in the person's lawn that, you know, that disrupt the view around that corner. There's the fact that there's a crosswalk to Corner Park that is located west of that, and you have people crossing Kitty Corner because the crosswalk proximity to that corner is farther away, right? So there's some, we've been focusing on traffic issues. There's also the flow of people issues, particularly on the south side, that aren't contemplated and addressed in here. So for me, tonight, I don't support moving forward with any more curb extensions. I would like to redirect our energy into what the permanent solution is going to be. For all the reasons of safety that have been said, for all the reasons in safety that, you know, that others will bring forward, let's figure out what that is. So that's where I'm at on the issue. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. We'll go for a little bit of our round two here. Counselor Monkhoff-Swain.
Thanks. I guess I'm a touch confused. You say you want to sort out 56A Street and trust the experts. What I see in front of me is the experts are telling us to implement this. So how does that compute to you saying not move ahead with this? I don't quite get that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I guess what's not clear to me is what more we need to know. We have traffic count data, we have video, we have concerns from residents. We've tried curbs already. The traffic studies have been completed. And what more are we gaining from another round of curbs? That's not clear to me, I guess. Maybe administration can provide some clarity on what more we're going to learn this year that we already don't know.
Can I just, sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
Like the way that I view this is we're not doing this to gain more data. We're doing this to make it safer, right? And the experts are telling us to make it safer. This is how I view this, but sorry.
No, that's okay. Through Chair to Councillor. So the recommendations made by the experts were they do display positive results. So this is not a second attempt to see if these things are working. This was the recommendation that the video footages that we observed or they evaluated did show the buses were able to maneuver through that intersection with those curb extensions in place. So they recommended adjusting just the way we put out those curb extensions rather than just trying it as a trial and error method. So the suggestion was to more focus on the intersection, which is, the speeding, the people mounting the sidewalks, turning into the opposing lane. So I think based on the analysis, it showed that the measures that we took last year did in fact help. And the recommendations were to continue doing this until, as a city, if we can determine to make this permanent curb extensions. So curb extension is temporary because as a council and administration, we decided to try it as a pilot program. Until we have budgets, we can decide to make this as a permanent feature at the intersection. So it is not, like I don't want to highlight, I don't want to say that this is not working. It's just we continue this and until we decide that should we be doing this as a permanent solution. Thank you.
Councillor Van Nuker.
Yeah, I think what has me confused and the reason I'm asking that question is the last bullet point where it says the evaluation of the pilot program to determine future direction, including if the program should be eliminated, continued on an annual basis or implemented on a permanent basis. So the first piece there, says, should we eliminate this or continue it? So there's a little bit of contradiction there, I think, and that's what has me confused, right? Because if it is as you said, which Councillor Monkhoff-Swain said, which you just said, that bullet point in the first half of that bullet point is where I'm confused, because if we're in year 2 of this, moving on with it, because the experts have told us so, then we shouldn't be considering eliminating the program still. But that's literally the words in the last bullet. So I'll leave it there for myself. I've rounded out my thoughts, and as to why, that is why I'm coming in hot on this, is because, well, if we haven't decided what we're going to do yet, then, and we're still contemplating eliminating it, what more do we need, right? So that's where I'm coming from. So I'll leave it there and let it see what others have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see what the others have to say, and then potentially we'll wrap up and get some clarification on that. Councillor Natellenbos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just to add to my initial conversation there, a couple of things. Number one, I'm all for traffic calming measures. Speaking with the community, this is a critical issue. I mean, even within my cul-de-sac, which is pretty isolated, there are people in there speeding. But based on the feedback that I've received, based on my own experiences, these curb extensions just aren't the way to go. And a big part of that has come from cyclists. A lot of that feedback is from cyclists. Now, again, I'm not the traffic expert in terms of how we're going to approach a lot of these traffic calming measures, but I do know that speed bumps, which is one scenario, and I know there's a lot of factors, especially snow clearing, but if we went the temporary route, they've been around since the 1950s, and they calm down traffic as well. I know we've tried things like 3D crosswalks. That wasn't successful. So I just, much like Steve, our Councillor Van Nieuwerk, want to get our ducks in a row before we keep going with either pilot projects or implementing things that don't work. So go with something that's known and is effective. And again, I'm excited for these crosswalks with the high visibility lights. So that is one great thing that we're going to be bringing to the community to help protect the kids and really any pedestrian within the community. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I'll just take my opportunity to say thank you for this report. I do appreciate too the extra touch of administration providing some reference to past council reports, both for the sake of the public that are following this conversation with interest, but also just for me because I hadn't read some of those reports previously dating back to 2022. I would say though, that I think it's like a 37-page report. I'll gladly go and follow the links to find it. But mentioned in, I believe our report dated tonight was a table from 2022 that actually gives the costs of different traffic calming solutions. I would have loved to have seen that included in this package, but I'll go and I'll dig it out. But just for future reference, when there's something that's specifically mentioned in a current report, if we're going to that effort to provide those pieces just to make it easier for folks to access, I think that would be a piece that the public would have interest in. Which brings me to, as I've heard feedback on this, I would say I would classify feedback I've heard under two main categories. First, is this a necessary cost? On the one hand, what price do you put on safety? But on the other hand, I almost got ran over walking across a controlled lighted intersection by Shoppers Drug Mart with my daughter last week. That you couldn't put any more controls in that intersection. Nothing that we do will make us completely safe. And so it's always a balancing act, right? And we understand that. So the question that I think residents put to me that I think is a good one is, what data do we have regarding accidents and or injuries at this particular intersection or along 56A Street?
Through the chair to Councillor, I'm not aware of any data for those two specific intersections that we are discussing, but I could look into past history if that is something that council wants. And if we do not have that, we are doing some studies this year. We can incorporate those studies into, so one of the studies that we are doing is a speed study. We could collect additional data if that's what council desires.
Yeah, thank you. And I think those questions have merit. Then again, I think a situation that we would all want to avoid is, we know that this particular part of our city has some safety issues, right? I would really want to avoid coming up with the solution the week after someone gets run over on that road, right? It's a little late in that case. So I think we're on some good things. I do have a suggestion to add to the portal or wonder if it's been contemplated, including something on the portal other than just going to my complaint doesn't fit any of these categories. I'm going to the generic other piece because I think that precludes some people from entering it. I think if we tell people we're eager to hear on a particular thing, they're more likely to report on it. So I wonder about including a specific item through the portal around near misses on traffic accidents that might collect some of this data that we're saying we're frustrated we're hearing about, but it's not ending up in the portal. So I'll just leave that suggestion with you. So the second major category of criticisms that I've heard on this one or concerns is this idea, file it under most Albertan thing ever, this kind of general suspicion of remote authorities importing their priorities into our communities. So that does come back to, are there actual accidents happening on our roads? Are there actual near misses happening? And If we can tell the story around with that data, and that's why we're doing these solutions, I think we'll have more success moving these things forward in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I see we have no other questions or comments. We do have a recommendation that this is received for information. Counselor Monkoff Swain, are you looking to move this or comment?
Yeah, I will, I'll move that the February 27, 2024 report update on traffic safety program be received as information. Speak to it very briefly. I'm not going to reiterate a whole bunch of things, but I do want to acknowledge Councilman Newkirk's point there around, I think some of the confusion around just calling this a pilot program. I think if we just called this our program, that probably would have avoided some of the questions up here. But yeah, as I mentioned, great report, and happy for the program to move ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, thank you. I'm at the point tonight where I'm going to support receiving this as information rather than put forward a motion to not have curbs, because the safety issues are rampant. I get that. You know, where I was hung up is what I acknowledged at the end of the conversation. Right now, what is most important to me is getting some feedback documented from the community in the way that I've, you know, asked for and harped on for a long time. Can you speak to, again, the intent of the survey? I believe you said in the upcoming survey, there's going to be a pointed section for feedback on the curbs. Can you elaborate on that one more time? Thank you.
Yeah, again, through chair to the councillor. So the public engagement tool is basically made for these RRFP locations that we're seeking. However, within that survey tool, we are going to add one segment where we can allow public to add their comments based, just get feedback for the curb extensions that we deployed last year. And we wanted to see people's opinion, learn from it, and take actions appropriately.
Yeah, and I do want to acknowledge that residents are experiencing survey fatigue. I know, but it is a way that council and administration can gain feedback. So please continue with some surveys, get some feedback into us, you know, to allow some guided decisions with that input. And as always, reach out to myself or other members of council with feedback. So there's my, you know, there's my plea for more feedback on these types of issues. So I had intended on bringing forward a motion tonight to not move forward with curbs and see where that landed, but I've course corrected, you know, based upon some clarity on that last bullet point. Pilot might not have been the right word, that's fine. But to be clear, where I'm at is, let's not leave residents wanting and betting on what we're gonna do next on 56A Street. Let's get out the cement trucks and the rebar, if that's what we're gonna do. Put something in and be done with it and move on. So that's where my head is at, and that's why I'm supporting receiving this as information tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Oh, we're lighting up again. Counselor Telebos, Counselor Monkoff Swain, and then we'll look to wrap it up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just looking for a little clarity. This will determine if I guess I feel a motion is necessary. But obviously accepting this as information, we're just accepting it as information. But path forward, what opportunity will we be given to potentially have a voice on whether or not these curb extensions have, or if we're accepting this as information, we're giving it the go ahead. I just looking for clarity there.
Mr. Schwartz.
Sure, Councilor Telebos, at any point in time, you can do a council inquiry to find out how the program's going, or position a notice of motion to entertain some other form.
Thank you. Any further comments, Counselor?
No, thank you.
Okay. Counselor Monkoff Swain.
Thanks. Just reading the room, and this may be a close vote, so I just want to make sure everyone's aware of the implications of what a no vote would be here. obviously, if this motion gets defeated, or it ties 3-3, that the traffic safety program that's being recommended here does not continue. Is that correct?
Ms. Winter.
Hi, thank you. Through you to Councillor Monkoff Swain. So in the procedural world, information being received is not a tie, vote, lose, win situation. If there's any councillor that is wishing to put forward a motion, because right now it's just receiving it for information, which is not really like it's not a motion, so to speak. You're just receiving all the information that's been presented to you. If there is a councillor that is wishing to put forward a motion on whether or not we would proceed with this, then I would say that that motion should be put forward right now.
Yeah, so I think for ultimate clarity, instead of receiving it as information,
there's no decision that is in front of council right now on the program.
so if it goes 3-3, so help me explain.
You're just not accepting it as information.
But the program carries on?
Correct.
Okay. Sure, let's vote.
Thank you. Thank you for all the questions and for your presentation and all the answers. I think when it comes to something such as this, I think as much as, we do always want to hear back from residents, and to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's point, yes, please give the feedback. We need to hear it. But sometimes we also have to look at, what is the expert opinion on what we should do to keep these things safe, and at some point we have to make decisions based on that, and that this may be one of those situations. It may not, but we shall see. So, are we ready to vote on this? More comments?
One more comment.
Okay, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Actually putting forward a motion.
Madam Clerk, should we vote on the information, or is that null and void?
This can be an amended motion on the main motion, which is fine.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll deal with this motion that I'm going to put forward on behalf of Councillor Natellenbos, then council will vote on that. And if that fails or if it passes, we'll move forward.
Thank you.
So I would like to put forward the motion that administration suspend the installation of temporary curb extensions at any intersections, and that by the end of May 2024, administration prepare a report to alternate traffic calming measures and additional cost in lieu of the proposed curb extension at both intersections at 56 A Street.
Do you wish to speak to your motion?
Yes, so again, reason I put this forward is primarily because of the voices I've heard within the community. And I know this is why I'm in this position, and this is why I'm in this role, is because I want to represent those voices. A lot of individuals within the community right off the get-go of the initial pilot project approached me as a resident, and fortunately enough, I'm in a position where I can speak to some of this now. I do not feel that it has the effect or the intended effect that it's proposing. As I mentioned, there were 5 different variables and manipulated variables that were introduced to see a bit of reduction in speed, which is awesome. But we need to consider that there were a lot of factors involved in that. So again, I'm all for traffic calming measures, but I feel like there's some more appropriate ones that can be implemented that would provide a better reduction in speed and safer communities. So for that reason, I'm proposing this.
Thank you. Councillor Monkoff Swain, and then Councillor Barnhart and Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, a lot of time today on 56 A Street. I don't support the motion. We asked this question of administration a couple of years ago. They went and did the assessment, they did the evaluation, they spoke to the experts, they implemented a pilot program, we got feedback, we adjusted it. Is it perfect? No. But I would encourage those residents to keep working with the administration to improve it. if we go back, they're just going to come back with the same report and say, well, our expert thinks curb recommendation. So do you want to go with our experts or do you want to go with your own opinion? So I don't support this based on everything that's involved in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Chair. And, sentiments are pretty much the same as Councillor Monkoff Swain. The concern I would have is that we would be spending time and money and going back and doing the same thing again. Yes, we're elected by our residents to hear their concerns, but we also then have to put our faith in our CAO to find the best experts out there to tell us what the right traffic calming measures are. My concern would be that if we didn't take the right direction, professional direction in this regard, and something were to happen, we've not listened to the experts, and that puts us in that puts our city in a very dangerous place. So I will be opposed to sending it back again. I think we've had our answer many times. We're going to see it again for another season, and if things are not going well, I'm sure the administration will bring it back to us. So I will not be in favor of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. I think for myself, my frustration on the issue is that we're at the end of the road already for the options. And, you know, there's been a bunch of traffic calming measure stuff done on 56A. So my frustration is less about what other traffic calming measures haven't we done, because we've done most everything short of putting bollards at that crosswalk and making it a dead end for both ends. And I'm half willing to put a motion forward to do that. Right? Like, you know, not effective, not what I would want to do, but you know, if you want to comment, well, take away the thoroughfare, right? So, so my frustration on the issue is most coming from the fact that we're at the end of the traffic calming measures with the curbs. And my goal was to provide certainty to residents with what's there, not to have residents wondering what's going to come next. And so if I was going to put forward a motion tonight, it would have ended at the first sentence, because similar to what Councillor Monkoff Swain said, we've had quite a few traffic study reports on the calming measures on 56A over the years. So yeah, so I'm going to hold strong with where I was, accepting it for information, getting feedback into the portal from everyone. You know, if there are strong feelings, please continue to bring it forward. And I'm looking forward to, like I said a few minutes ago, getting out the concrete and rebar, giving certainty to something on the north end and south end of this road for residents, so we're not playing the where do the curbs go next game. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe we will look to wrap this up. Are you good to call the vote?
I'll speak to that really quick. Yes, 100% I agree we need a traffic calming measure, but again, this is something that we've seen a lot of issues with and is a relatively new concept. Let's go back to the 1950s. If we want a quick solution, maybe it's that speed bump right now that's temporary, that reduces the speed on that road, but has been proven to be successful for many, many years now. So I would much rather propose a simple solution like that than continuing to pilot this program that has created a lot of issues. Again, cyclists, individuals in the area, turning issues. It's a bigger issue than it is a solution, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that I would presume that when we had the report come back last time, that things like speed bumps and such were likely considered. And when we're looking at this, we're also looking at turning and turning the corner, and how do we slow people down with that? And I'm not sure that that's possible with a speed bump at that point, but we will vote. So I will call the vote. Thank you. And the vote does not pass. 1 yes, 5 not in favor. And we'll move on to the next one, which was moved by Councillor Monkoff Swain. And we will vote on this one. Please vote. And that one passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Great discussion on that very lively topic. All right, we will move to the next one. Thank you very much, Park. 7.5, request for extension, sub-regional transit. Ms. O'Neill, you'll be speaking.
Good evening, Council. This report is to request an extension to the end of Q2 for the 2 transit reports that we have outstanding for Council. As noted in the report, we are requesting this extension because the primary contact at Leduc Transit has been away on an extended leave. Having their insight to begin detailed planning and negotiations for sub-regional transit is a key step. I do want to assure Council that we are still on track to begin our expanded service to Millwoods on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I believe we do have a motion for this one as well. Can we put this up? Would anybody like to move this motion? This is basically addressing what Ms. O'Neill stated, that they're just looking for a request for an extension. Councilor Van Newkirk?
Yeah, thank you. I would move that administration continue to negotiate with regional partners regarding cost-sharing opportunities regarding option 3, set out in the sub-regional transit report, and report back to council by the end of the first quarter 2024, and that by the end of first quarter 2024, administration provide a report on the options for adding additional stops to the current transit service. Example, stops on the south side of Beaumont. Thank you. Original due date, March 26th, revised due date, June 30th, 2024. So, lots there.
Yes, that was a long one. Thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'll just say the purpose here is more time. It just simply, so yeah.
Correct. Somebody, we're good? Okay, I will call the vote on this one. And that passes 6-0 unanimously. And it is my understanding that Councillor Munkoff Swain may have a subsequent motion. Would you like to put that forward at this time?
Yes, please. So the subsequent motion is that by March 12th, 2024, administration prepare a proposed amending bylaw that will amend bylaw 1041-23, 2024 fees and charges, Schedule A transit fees, amending the following schedule: one-way ticket to $4.50, 10-packer tickets to $40, monthly pass $80, and a monthly senior/student pass $70, effective April 1st, 2024.
Would you like to speak to that motion?
Love to. So we're not going to get into why on transit, but more importantly, kind of what we're looking at here. What am I trying to achieve? So when we debated transit previously about increasing our system to get into Edmonton throughout the day and on weekends, one of our key drivers in that was trying to increase ridership. And the fares previously in Beaumont were $5, but subsequent through that fees and charges bylaw, that currently sits at $6. And just for ultimate clarity here, the $6 just gets you into Edmonton. You still need to pay the Edmonton fee on top of that. And so for me, I really want to make sure that if we're going to launch this transit system, we need to make sure it's affordable for folks, and that we don't price people out of taking the bus. The first question people are going to ask is how many people are taking it. They're going to send updates of like how many times the buses are empty, etc. And what I don't want the reason to be is that it's because it's too expensive. the way that our current bylaw fees and charges sits, it would cost you $19 a day to get to the U of A and back, or $19 a day to get to downtown and back. That's $6 plus the $3.50 from Edmonton each way. I don't think that's achievable. I don't think that's reasonable, and we're going to turn people off catching the transit. What does this do from an impact perspective? I'll invite Ms. O'Neill to provide some background on kind of expected ridership and the cost impacts on that. So under Ms. O'Neill, we did put a number in our 2024 budget based on expected ridership. So could you just provide a bit of background on how we're basing what our numbers are around that?
Through the deputy mayor to Councillor Monkoff-Swain. Sorry, are you asking what our assumptions were in the budget for revenues for transit?
What are we assuming for ridership, I guess, is moving forward?
No problem. So in our budget, we assumed a 20% increase in ridership versus our pre-COVID rates. So about almost 30,000 rides.
30,000 rides per year. Thank you. And if you could, I know you've collated this information, but just because we wanted to make sure that's out in the public, at $6 a ride, based on 28,000, could you just explain that math for us?
Sure, no problem. I'm just pulling up my notes here. Through the deputy mayor to Councillor Monkoff-Swain, apologies, it's 28,000 and not 30,000. The math for a $1 increase would be that $28,000 decrease.
So
Sorry, increase in costs.
Effectively, we would, by raising it to $6, we would be looking at a $20,000 increase in revenue from ridership, right? By going up to $6. And what my motion is proposing to do is to drop that from $6 down to $4.50. And this is a philosophical question for folks. While we think our target is 28,000 riders, I don't think we'll hit that at $6. Like I mentioned, I think $19 a day to get in and out is too much. And so dropping it to $4.50, yes, that means we receive less income or less revenue, I should say, from each transit rider, but I believe that will attract more riders. So we have an opportunity here to launch April 1st. And I think it's prudent on us to provide a service that is affordable for people. And the last thing I'll just add here before I let others jump in is around the why. Like, why bring this up now? And this really, the reason why it's come up today is we're about to launch our communications around transit coming up here in March around the updated transit system. And the number one question people are going to ask is how much it's going to cost. So I want council to be able to weigh in on this discussion. And my view is that it should be $4.50. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor. We have Councillor Talabas, Penrod, then Barnhart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Correct me if I'm wrong, Madam O'Neill, but I believe that we had mentioned for every dollar it was 28,000, correct? So $1.50, we'd be looking at 42. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, you're correct. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. So we're looking at another $42,000 deficit in terms of what we would already be losing from transit. I realize it's a requirement. We had already voted this in budget under the impression that we were only going to be paying X amount of dollars, and now we're looking at additional $42,000 loss. And that will have an impact eventually on tax levy, and we'll potentially have to make that adjustment if we can't recover the funds elsewhere. So although I do appreciate the affordability factor, I don't appreciate putting the burden of tax on everyone else when a lot of people won't be using this service. So yes, we do need it. We presented it, we accepted it one way. And I would like, as we mentioned here, that we trust our administration with the initial proposal of ticket fees. Based on their math, it was what was appropriate to help recover a decent amount of funds. Obviously, you'll never be profitable in transit, and that's not what I'm looking for. But I'm looking for some financial health. We've dipped into throughout budget a lot of our reserves, and this isn't the time to go even deeper into our pockets. So I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penrod.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just question for my esteemed colleague, Councillor Moncofswain. Why 450? Especially if I'm correct in this, and please do correct me if I'm wrong. I believe fare is payable by cash, and a person needs exact change, right? So by going to 450 instead of $5, which we already established was the previous rate, are we actually making it more difficult for people needing to have that exact change?
Councillor?
Yeah, happy to go to $4 if you don't want to do the 50 cents change. I hear you. The reason why, I always thought $5 was too much. If you look around the region, and Fort Saskatchewan, for example, is $5. Our trip, just to give some data, our trip from Ken Nickel into Millwoods is about 12 kilometers. Fort Saskatchewan, for $5, you get not only the local transits, you actually get to go from wherever you live in Fort Saskatchewan to the hub, and then you go a 26-kilometer trip into Edmonton. That's $5. Stony Plain, Spruce Grove, similar. They have on-demand transit, so $5.60 gets you your on-demand transit to the hub, and then another 25-kilometer trip in. And so I always thought $5 was already pricing people out. So, Leduc's $5, and they've got additional service and a much greater distance as well. So I take your point on $4.50 around the cash. Most people are buying, and here I go without the data, but anecdotally, most people are buying either the monthly pass or the 10-trip tickets, and that's what I use. So I know that it's an important consideration. I think that could be something that comes back as feedback. I think we're getting a broader report in Q2 on transit generally, and maybe we could get some feedback from as part of that. But yeah, if you're worried about the 50 cents, I'm happy to go to $4.
Well, I suppose people do have that. And thanks for my second question was going to be actually if you'd provide some of that data that you had shared earlier, and you did that. So thank you. I think it's important, residents travel around the region and know what kind of value they're getting for this. So I tend to want to support this motion. I do believe that we're asking people to change their behaviors, coming all the way back to Councillor Barnhart's comments earlier with our environmental master plan piece. This is the most significant, the ecological crisis is the most significant problem in front of us for generations to come. The pickle is also in front of us is the cost of living crisis. And it's super hard for our human brains to wrap our minds around these long-term, somewhat amorphous existential crises when we've got something more urgent in front of us. I think it's wise to try to drive ridership on this early, and we can adjust the price points on it once we have people locked into a new behavior pattern. So I want to accept this. And to Councillor Nantelabas's point, you're right, it is an additional cost. I think in this case, it will be money well spent. And I think it will be money well spent in the short term that we can actually, as the program continues to get on its legs, still understanding we're still recovering from the major setback of COVID and the total disruption of a system that we were already in process of building on there. So I'll be voting for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be in favor of this motion, but I do have a question for the administration, just in terms of process. By passing this, we're bringing back a bylaw, but we're tending to right now be debating that. And I'm just wondering, so by voting in favor of this, we're just basically saying to the administration, bring it back, and then we'll be voting on that bylaw. Is that correct?
Ms. Winter?
Procedurally, so yes, you're, in this motion is directing the administration to prepare the bylaw. However, when the bylaw comes forward, it is still subject to first, second, and third reading. So council would have another chance to vote down on that bylaw amendment.
Okay, further to that, the timing of this, it's tight, obviously. Has the administration got the resources to get it done by March 12th?
Did you want to speak to that? Okay. In speaking with the area, it is quite a quick timeline, but we would be able to prepare the bylaw for this amendment.
It does not require to be put out for public hearing or any of that notification?
Thank you for the question. No, we do not. It's not a land use bylaw or anything. This is not something that would need a public hearing.
Okay, just trying to eliminate any surprises that might be coming. And just to speak briefly to it, I think this is year 10 or 11 that I've been pushing and hoping for transit in our community. I came from communities where that was in existence, and it feels like we're pushing a string up a hill. We're having a difficult time, but we're getting there slowly, but we're getting there. I don't think it'll ever be the right price, but I do think that $4.50 or $4 is more affordable than $6. I just did a little bit of my own testing on that, and yes, the reaction was $6 was too high for essentially a shuttle ride to Edmonton from here. It's not very far, and there's other ways people can get there. So this is to get people to change their behavior. So I am in favor of moving forward to get people using transit and to see improvements down the road as to how we're doing that as well. So thank you, and I will be in favor.
Thank you. Just to continue on kind of round one, I'm going to go to Councillor Van Newkirk, then Councillor Natellenbos.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Monkoff-Swain, for bringing this forward. Council made a large investment at budget in transit, and the worst thing that could happen is we bring that investment to life, fill the buses with diesel, start driving around, and they're empty because because the cost was too much, right? And so when you just brought this forward, I've been busy scenarioing, and what I reflect on is that when you compare scenarios through some of the municipalities you just spoke of, we would be costing more to go to the same places, and as you pointed out, having less service. The first thing that was pointed out when the BSRC was brought online was that exact conversation. So I know what Beaumont thinks and how Beaumont thinks about that kind of stuff. And we're behind before we start if we don't consider this. So, so supporting this brings us to a point where there's first, second, and third reading on the amending bylaw. And, if residents have feedback on what we're doing here, please bring it to all of us and, let us know what you think, and we will we'll see where that goes. So tonight I'll support the proposed amending bylaw. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor. So we'll just go for a couple last comments here to Councillor Natellenbos and then Councillor Monkoff-Swain to wrap it up, and then we will call for the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I find quite interesting here is I believe we had quite a similar conversation a couple of weeks back in regards to amending a bylaw. And, I absolutely respect all fellow council members here, but the conversation had was we shouldn't be rushing through these changes. It should be more timed, more thought put into the process. And we're in the same scenario, and it's a different story in terms of support. So I just question why we do it for one and not for the other when we talk about consistency across the board. In addition to that, I just want a little clarity, I guess, from administration. If we do not find additional funds within our pockets here or pull from reserves, is there a potential for another tax increase this year for residents of Beaumont?
Mr. Swartz.
There's a couple ways that council could do this. One is we can run out the year and see where we're at from an overall operating budget. $40,000 on a $55 million budget is probably something that we can absorb. We'll have better data at the end of the year, and which would give us an indication of what effect transit would have on the 2025 tax rate, and start the budget conversations with that number. The other way is, yeah, council could agree to, on a 4-3 vote, to increase the tax rate by the equivalent, which we believe is anywhere from 0.1 to 0.2% on the tax rate. So there's definitely options.
Perfect, thank you. And one last question. A lot of the focus and conversation here was on subject matter experts. And obviously our administrative team, it holds a lot of subject matter experts. So just a question, and I'm not sure if it would fall on you, Mr. DeBlanco, but our initial number that we determined, obviously there was some math that went into that. There was some expertise to determine what was appropriate cost for transit to obviously minimally impact our tax levy, but also taking into consideration what's affordable. So just wondering if anyone could speak to that. How did we come up with our initial number, and would it be fiscally responsible to adjust it ad hoc like this?
Ms. O'Neill?
Through the Deputy Mayor to Councillor Natellenbos, during the budget cycle, we put in a modest fee increase similar to what we saw the regional municipalities do, and that's what we based our fee increase on in the fees and charges bylaw.
Perfect. So I would just say it's a very educated number that was put forward based on obviously research. And
I would say that's a fair statement. The costs at this time are still estimates. We're starting the new program on April 1st, and we're assuming a ridership number, so there's still a lot of variability in those numbers.
perfect. And sorry, just for clarity for everyone, if we don't hit the ridership number that we're looking at now, is that going to result in more deficit based on transit itself? Would it be, let's say we hit 50% of the 23,000 ridership, I think we're.
That's correct, because our direct and indirect and direct costs would remain the same.
Okay, perfect. So we could be looking at a further increase to taxes as well. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McGough-Swain, do you wish to wrap things up? Okay. I will call the vote. And that passes 5-1. Councillor Natellenbos opposed. Okay. Next, moving along. 7.6 is motion following notice. That is my own. That by the third quarter of 2024, administration in consultation with the Youth Advisory Committee and the Recreation and Culture Advisory Committee prepare a report on options for providing additional youth programming, such as teen nights, that would promote social well-being and free or low-cost opportunities for youth engagement, and that the report include information on what is currently available through the city, what models could be adopted from regional municipalities, details on costing, next steps, and implementation considerations. I will speak to my motion. I wanted to bring this forward as we continuously hear that despite all the rec options we have here, there's still not enough for youth to do in our community kind of together as groups when they hang out. There are numerous other surrounding communities that offer youth night type events at their pools and other venues specifically for youth. I know we offer some events through our youth center, but I thought we could also do something for youth that may not be part of the youth center. Some examples from other municipalities include Leduc partnering with their FCSS department, doing a teen movie night and swim at their outdoor pool. There's other examples of youth swim nights exclusive for youth ages 11 to 17. We could do it once a month. We could do it once a quarter. I also wanted to leave it more open and not just exclusive to the pool, because we also have a fantastic turf field that could possibly be used as well. I also thought it was a great idea to include the Youth Advisory Committee, as they're directly impacted and may be able to come up with some great options since it impacts them. And also including the Recs and Culture Advisory Board will allow for some additional creative thinkers to put their heads together and come to the table. Essentially, this is one of the reasons why these committees are here. So it's a great opportunity to use them and get some feedback. Seeking out what others municipalities do may also be helpful as they've seen success with programs like this. We will leave it to administration to determine costs, et cetera, to bring back to us to ensure that it's affordable. Perhaps we start to do it once a quarter and go from there. We have limited control over what kind of companies come to our city. And I hear parents when they say there are no group type of hangouts for youth. So I'm hoping that we can offer something through the city as a start. Happy to entertain any questions or comments. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward and well thought out and broad swath of information coming back. So I think that's important. I know that I've seen, teen nights of various sports and stuff line up around the building in Leduc or through the building in Leduc, be it pool or the volleyball or basketball or any of the soccer drop-ins. So there's been big demand for some of that I've physically seen in Leduc. And I particularly like the details on costing piece, because if we're shy, $2,000 or $3,000 worth of some sporting equipment to unlock opportunities for youth to do more in the community, I'd like to know what those things are that we could invest in to unlock. So some of the details on costing with these models need not be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Maybe we're just a little bit of equipment away from, having some fun nights, right? And I'm interested in hearing about that. And regional scans for ideas are something that council does all the time, and I want to see coming more from administration. So that's where my head's at on this. Happy to support. Thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? No. I will move to vote. Please start. And that passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. I think this will be great for the youth in our community. We will move along. Councillor inquiries, responses, and reports. Are there any councillor inquiries? Councillor Barnhart.
I think the administration has one that they're going to put up on the screen, or do I just read it? I'm not sure. You do.
We can give her a minute and I'm sure it'll pop up.
I have it here, but it's easier to read up there. Thank you, Chair. Please provide information on if there are any assistance programs where Beaumont residents can access temporary financial and/or social emotional support other than provincial income supports and programs to help assist with arrangements for paying for urgent costs, such as Beaumont program service fees and home utility costs due to family breakdown, major illness, or job loss. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Natellenboss. Just give Madam Clerk a minute. There we go.
Thank you. I have two up here. First one is please provide information on what actions have been taken to try to work with neighboring municipalities to improve the 41st Ave and 50th Street intersection. If none, what actions can be taken to work with the responsible municipalities to improve this intersection to better protect commuters? Please include information on motor vehicle incidents and near misses that have been reported in 21, 22, and 23 at this intersection. And then the next one would be parking considerations for commercial and residential mixed use. So please provide information on how the appropriate minimum number of parking stalls are determined when combining commercial and residential, and what factors are considered prior to approving development permit. Additionally, what opportunities are available to business owners to appeal the decision of the proposed development. And just an example here is the project plan 202-1479 block 1 lot 10A.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there any other inquiries? Nope. All right, moving along. CAO update. Sat down just in time.
Yes, thank you very much to members of council and to the public. I've got a couple updates from two different sections. One, of course, is snow removal. And I'm pleased to report that all P1s are complete and crews are now working in the P2 routes with an anticipated completion by the end of this week or early next week, weather permitting. I see that we are expecting a little bit more snow for the weeks out, but it doesn't look like a heck of a lot of accumulations. So that is within our service level commitments. So well done, everybody. I know they've been sitting revving up their engines for several months now on those graders, and they finally got a chance to get them out of the garage. So the team will also be measuring snowpack levels in residential areas later this week to assess if removal is required. The team is assessing conditions, alleyways, and considering work in these locations is required once the higher priorities are completed. Once we get the higher priorities completed and resources and equipment get freed up, we go in and do above service level, and we've done that each and every year. So the message we'd like to send out to the public is to be patient. This was a considerable amount of snow in a short period of time with a lot of wind. And that wind typically polishes those roads up pretty good and packs in that snow. I know looking at the windrows today, they were quite high. So we got quite the dump. So let's look at the community and social development. The Couples Connect workshop is being offered March 15th. Family Day puzzle event update. The church is keeping the puzzles until they are finished, and we'll announce a date of the public review. I got to pop by there and have a look. Like, I can just imagine what that looks like if they didn't get it done all in one setting. FCSS Early Childhood Development and Youth Center spring and summer programs are being offered in the activity guide, which is now on the website. Volunteer income tax program will begin in March. So that provides services to low income individuals until the end of April. The CRA will be having a presentation at the 50 Plus Club on March 6th. The Cross the Line activity has begun in schools with Pink Shirt Day is tomorrow. We had 270 youth that participated in this year's Pink Shirt Day. Cross the Line with another 83 youth to participate in the next few days. Responses have been very positive, as you can see, with the youth making various comments such as thank you for the presentation. It helped me a lot. Very important anti-bullying campaign, and tomorrow is Pink Shirt Day. So with that, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Moving along. Correspondence. I presume no correspondence. Are there any notices of motion? Anybody would like to put forward? None at this time? Okay. Thank you. And our closed session was on our consent agenda. So, oh, no. And we will look to move to adjournment. Thank you very much, everyone, tonight. We'll adjourn 8:21.